I walked away from my own wedding altar, leaving my bride in tears before 200 guests because she'd betrayed me one final time. She invited my abusive mother and manipulative sister to our ceremony, the one boundary I'd made crystal clear. My story begins long before that devastating wedding day. It starts with a childhood that should have been filled with love but was instead marked by rejection. My biological father left when I was 4 years old. I barely remember him, just fragments of a man who walked away without looking back. My mother remarried, and I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd get the family I desperately wanted. I was 6 years old when my stepdad sat me down and delivered words that would echo through my entire childhood. "I'll never be your dad." Not in anger, not in the heat of an argument, but as a simple statement of fact. As if you were telling me the sky was blue or grass was green. From that moment on, I understood my place in their household. I wasn't a son. I was a burden they had reluctantly agreed to carry. The years that followed were a masterclass in emotional neglect. I watched as my half-siblings received the love and attention I craved. Every school play, every achievement, every milestone, I celebrated alone while they basked in parental pride. My mother had checked out of being my parent the day she said "I do" to my stepdad. I became invisible in my own home, a ghost haunting the hallways of a house that was never truly mine. The day I turned 18, my mother woke me up before dawn. I thought maybe, for once, she'd remembered my birthday. Instead, she handed me a suitcase packed with my belongings. "It's time for you to leave," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. No explanation beyond the implicit message that I had overstayed my welcome by exactly 18 years. I walked out that door and never looked back. I cut all contact, built my own life from scratch, and slowly healed from the wounds they'd inflicted. Years later, I met the woman I thought would be my forever. She was smart, funny, beautiful, and seemed to genuinely care about me. When I told her about my family during one of our early dates, I expected compassion. Instead, I got something else entirely. She looked at me with those earnest eyes and said, "Maybe you should try reconnecting with them. Family is so important." I explained that some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. I told her about the rejection, the abandonment, the years of feeling unwanted. But she had this idealistic view of family, probably because she came from a loving home, where parents actually wanted their children. She couldn't comprehend that not all families are worth salvaging, that some relationships are better left buried. When we got engaged, her campaign to reunite me with my family intensified. During wedding planning, she brought up inviting my parents constantly. Each time I explained my boundaries. Each time she dismissed them. "You'll regret it if they're not there," or "You don't know what's best for you. You'll thank me later." As if I were a child who didn't understand my own trauma. The night before everything fell apart, we had our worst fight yet. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "You know what? If you don't invite your parents, I will. You just don't know what's best for you. You'll thank me for it in the long run." I snapped. I told her that if she couldn't respect what I'd been through, I didn't want to marry her. But even then, she kept pushing, kept trying to persuade me that I was wrong about my own life, my own pain. I grabbed my keys and left, spending the evening with friends who actually listened when I spoke. I came home around 11, slept on the couch, and woke up to an empty apartment. She'd left for work without saying a word. I work from home, so I spent that entire day anxious and restless, wondering if our relationship had just imploded. My fiancé normally got home around 5:30. When 6 o'clock came and went with no sign of her, I started to worry. Then at 6:15, she finally walked through the door. But she wasn't alone. My half-sister was with her. Now, my sister and I had maintained a relationship despite my estrangement from the rest of the family. We met every Thursday, talked about our lives, carefully avoiding the landmine that was our shared relatives. But we lived 45 minutes apart, so her showing up unannounced was bizarre. Both of them looked anxious, almost panicked. "What's going on?" I asked, my stomach already sinking. My sister burst into tears. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed, and I felt my world beginning to tilt. After 5 agonizing minutes of crying, she finally started talking. Apparently, when she told our mother and Dale, my stepdad, about my engagement, it had started a family war. But not for the reasons you think I might. They weren't upset about missing my milestone. No. They were upset because my 27-year-old half-brother was still living at home, single, with no steady job, and my engagement had highlighted this failure. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "They kicked me out the day I turned 18, but they're still supporting him at 27? My sister nodded miserably. Our mother apparently wanted to do the same thing that she'd done to me, throw him out and wash her hands of responsibility. But Dale wouldn't let her. So they were currently separated, with our mother living with my sister's family and refusing to return home until my brother was evicted. Then came the part that made my blood boil. My sister actually believed that getting an invitation to my wedding would somehow fix their broken marriage, as if my engagement had caused their problems, rather than simply exposing the rot that had always been there. I exploded. My engagement had nothing to do with their issues. Their shitty parenting and dysfunctional relationship caused this. Don't you dare put that on me. She cried harder, and this time I didn't comfort her. I was done being the family's emotional support while they repeatedly stabbed me in the back. My fiancé sat there silently through all of this, and I turned my attention to her. "What do you have to say about this?" I demanded. She teared up and started explaining. My sister had been texting her for weeks, feeding her lies about our Thursday conversations. According to my sister's fabricated version of events, I was constantly talking about wanting to reconcile with the family. She claimed I was too embarrassed or proud to admit it, but that deep down, I desperately wanted them at the wedding. "How could you believe that?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I was crystal clear about being no contact. I tell you everything. When I was thinking about switching jobs last year, we talked about it every night. Your opinion mattered more than anyone else. Why would I hide something this important?" She apologized and offered to show me her phone. My sister immediately panicked. "Please don't show him," she begged, but my fiancé was trying to save our relationship. I read through the messages in disbelief. My sister had been systematically lying, twisting every innocent comment from our Thursdays into evidence of my supposed desire to reconnect. Every time my fiancé had asked me about inviting my family, and I'd refused, she'd text my sister, who responded with more lies. "He's just embarrassed. He can't admit he's partially at fault too. He really wants to see them again, but won't say it." Complete fabrications. I would be perfectly happy never seeing any of them again for the rest of my life. I told her, my sister, "Get out. Thursdays are canceled. We're done." She tried to fight back, apologizing over and over, but I ignored her until she finally left. I blocked her number immediately. After years of maintaining that one family connection, I was now completely alone again. And she had no one to blame but herself. My fiancé and I were left in the wreckage. I told her I loved her, but my trust was shattered. She'd gone behind my back, let herself be manipulated, and nearly destroyed the one boundary I begged her to respect. We agreed to try couples therapy as a last-ditch effort to save our relationship. The first few therapy sessions were brutal. I was angry, hurt, and felt betrayed from every direction. My fiancé struggled to understand the full extent of the damage she had caused. She'd been so convinced by my sister's narrative that she'd completely dismissed my clearly stated boundaries. Our therapist helped us unpack everything. The breakthrough came when my fiancé admitted she hadn't fully understood the depth of my childhood trauma. She thought inviting my parents might magically heal old wounds without realizing that forcing contact with abusive family members only reopens them. She worked hard to prove her commitment to our relationship. She took full responsibility for the secret conversations and the misguided attempts to force a reconciliation. She learned to listen without immediately trying to fix things or offer solutions. On my end, I worked on communicating my boundaries even more clearly and processing my feelings of betrayal. We set firm boundaries. My family would not be part of our wedding, period. This would be a celebration of our relationship, not a venue for unresolved trauma. My fiancé understood and respected this decision. We agreed that our wedding would be about us, and only us. As therapy progressed, we started to heal. We learned to communicate better, to validate each other's feelings, and to approach conflicts with empathy. It was slow and painful, but we were rebuilding. By the time we finished our therapy sessions, we decided the wedding would proceed as planned, without my family, with clear boundaries, and with hope for our future together.
The wedding day arrived with a mixture of excitement and lingering nervousness. I stood at the altar in my suit, surrounded by friends who had supported me through everything. When my fiancée walked down the aisle, she was absolutely beautiful. For a moment, I thought everything would finally be okay. The ceremony began smoothly. When it was my turn to speak, I took a deep breath and started reading my vows. I talked about our journey, the challenges we'd overcome, and how much I loved her. Then I mentioned the work we'd done in therapy and our agreement to keep the wedding focused on us, free from family interference. That's when I noticed her expression change. She looked anxious, panicked even. She glanced toward the back of the venue, and I followed her gaze. My heart stopped. My mother and sister were sitting in the back row. They had somehow gotten in despite every boundary we'd set, every agreement we'd made, every promise she'd given me. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. This was supposed to be our day, the day we celebrated moving forward together. Instead, it had become another platform for the family drama I'd spent years escaping. I couldn't let this pass without acknowledgement. I turned to our guests and said, "I need to address something important. This day was meant to be a celebration of our love, free from family conflicts. However, despite our clear agreement, my mother and sister have been invited here today without my consent." The room went silent. My fiancé's face turned red with shame and anger. I continued, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "This is not how I envisioned this day. I need to honor my commitment to myself and my feelings. So in light of what has happened, I must step away from this ceremony." The silence was deafening. My fiancé's eyes filled with tears. She reached out toward me, but I couldn't meet her gaze. The betrayal was too fresh, too deep. I had trusted her with my deepest wounds, and she had weaponized them against me. I turned and walked away from the altar, leaving her standing there, stunned and speechless. As I walked out of the venue, I felt a strange mixture of relief and heartbreak. I'd hoped for a different outcome, but I couldn't ignore this violation. I needed to protect myself, even if it meant losing everything I thought I wanted. The aftermath was chaotic. My fiancé tried reaching out constantly. Texts, calls, voicemails filled with apologies and explanations. I couldn't bring myself to respond. My mother and sister also tried to contact me, but I ignored them too. I wasn't ready to hear their excuses or justifications. Days turned into weeks. I remained in contact with no one from that disaster. I focused on healing, on processing the emotional turmoil. I spent time with the friends who had supported me through everything and worked on moving forward. It was lonely and challenging, but necessary. Eventually, my fiancé stopped trying to reach me. My mother and sister seemed to have given up as well. I was left to rebuild my life and process the pain of the breakup and the family issues that kept resurfacing like an infection that wouldn't heal. I continue to work on myself and maintain my friendships. The healing process is ongoing, and I know it will take time. The journey isn't over. The road ahead is still uncertain and sometimes frightening, but I'm moving forward with strength and resilience, determined to build a life where my boundaries are respected and my pain is acknowledged. I deserve that much. We all do.